Thank you, Marty Haig in Calgary. Right now, let's take you back to Lansdowne Park in Ottawa. Don Whitman, bring us up to date on the first half CompuStat.
Well, Brian, it was a very tough defensive game here at Lansdowne Park through the first 30 minutes. Neither team was really able to get much going in the way of offense, basically, in that run and shoot. Both teams throwing the football. Joe Barnes had some problems in that first half as he coughed up the ball 3 times on interceptions. Actually, in terms of net offense, the Calgary Stampeders with 226 yards as opposed to just 87 for the Rough Riders, but the Rough Riders lead in the all-important category on the scoreboard by a margin of 10-8. We'll return to Lansdowne Park in Ottawa. And
here are Ron Lancaster and Leo Cahill.
Well, it looked like the order of the half was take the football and throw it to the guy in the other colored jersey. Joe Barnes had 3 interceptions. J.C. Watts probably could have had 3 if the other team could have caught them, but there were some outstanding plays, Ron, and let's take a look at one of them.
Well, on the play, this is the touchdown. Joe Barnes, you see Emmanuel Turbot, he runs a curl. Walker goes out in the flat, and that opens the seam for Dwight Edwards. And as we've said many times, don't give him any room because with his speed, you're not going to catch him. That's been the really bright spot. Dwight Edwards gets away from him, and they're not going to catch him. He's got the great speed, as we've said many, many times. That was one of Calgary's highlights for that first half. Times have been a little tough for Joe Barnes. They've moved it up and down the field, but they haven't put it in the end zone.
I think the key to the whole first half, as we've alluded to constantly during the first half, was that both of these teams spend the entire week working on the run and shoot, on either their offense or their defense against their offense, and they both intimately know this offense, and so it's pretty difficult for either team to work effectively against the other team today.
Well, anytime you know somebody that well, it comes down to execution. So you must execute, and that means make the read, get rid of the ball quick, and get it to the open man. Joe Barnes has thrown it away a couple of times, and he had those problems in the first half, and Don Whitman has the chance to talk to Joe Barnes about the play.
Joe Barnes, a couple of problems in that first half, 3 interceptions. What was going on?
Well, just a couple of them were, forced balls. The first one down there on the second play of the game was a forced ball. I got hit from behind as I was not getting anything on the ball. Then the next 2, I thought they had a ball in there. They just made, one ball was overthrown, the other one they made a good play on the ball. JoJo made a real good play on the ball.
What can we expect to see from Calgary in the second half offensively?
I don't think they stopped us yet. We stopped ourselves, so we're going to be doing the same thing we've been doing, except, try to cut out the penalties and turnovers.
Good luck in the second half.
Joe, you were a little excited there in the fourth quarter a couple of times on a couple of penalty calls against your squad.
Ron, I tell you, I can't hear a word you're saying. There's a lot of noise down here. So I assume you want to talk about the defense. They played tough. They played the whole game, and it's really something to be proud of. Now, and that's the defense that had given up a hell of a lot of points early in the preseason and in the first game, and I'm proud of that.
Joe, 5 interceptions this afternoon. Can you hear us now?
Ron, I didn't get the question.
5 interceptions this afternoon. They seem to be going to that ball very well.
Well, we just didn't move the ball at all, and we went, once in a while we catch a pass, or once in a while we do something that looked good, but we really did not play very well offensively. The one thing we did do was we didn't play giveaway. We didn't fumble the damn thing, and we did not throw the intercept.
Joe, did it hurt you a lot when Tim McCray got hurt this afternoon? It looked to me like they took Nicholson out and didn't have a regular middle linebacker in there. You may have been able to run a little bit earlier in the game.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. We're not a running team, and if McCray had been in there, in all likelihood, we would have been trying to throw. So I don't care how they line up. We're going to throw the ball.
Joe, you mentioned McCray. What did happen to him?
I think he sprained his ankle a little bit.
We looked over on the bench. We never did find him. We thought maybe he just decided to go have a hamburger.
Yeah, he went in and got some ice on it, and he went up and sold hot dogs. Everyone's got to earn their living,
Joe, it looks like you gave your defensive ends the responsibility of getting upfield and not letting Barnes get to the outside, and they did an excellent job, and those 2 big defensive tackles come up on the inside and covered those rush lanes, and that was the story pretty much of the game all afternoon.
Well, they played a hell of a game, and Joe's really sharp, and he's tough to contain. He's going to complete some passes on you, but we did get good pressure. I'm proud of those guys.
Well, we asked the question earlier, Joe, you're having difficulty hearing us because of the music down at field level. the 5 interceptions this afternoon, and again, that experience, those people you acquired prior to your game with Edmonton really helped.
Good players beat good coaching.
I tell you, Joe, you're just full of them today.
Joe, 2 wins against Western opponents. You're now in pretty good shape as you prepare for your next game.
Well, the next one's coming fast and curious. We're not going to have the leisure of long delays, and we're going to have to be ready in a hurry.
Joe Moss, I know you're anxious to get to the dressing room. Thanks for chatting with us. Congratulations on the 14-12 victory over the Calgary Stampeders
Thanks
this
a lot.
afternoon here at Lansdowne Park. And we'll return with our Carling O'Keefe Sports Game Stars after this. Offensively, Mike Catterbone. Defensively, Greg Marshall, our Carling O'Keefe Game Stars this afternoon. Gentlemen, congratulations. Let's start with the defensive star, Greg Marshall. Greg, you were in that Calgary backfield a lot this afternoon.
Well, I felt like I hadn't been playing up to my capabilities the last few games, and I was kind of up for the ball game. I saw what success BC had last week, so that got me going a little bit, gave me a little bit of incentive to get in there.
Greg, you had the opportunity to play against a young man today that was a rookie. Did that make your job a little bit easier?
Well, you know, he's going to get some tough competition the last couple of weeks, and I like to consider myself as a tough competition for him, and I just wanted to make sure he had a long day.
Greg, on the play side, you were getting upfield and getting the depth in there to cut down the sprint out by Barnes, and then the offside was getting, and vice versa. When it was going the other way, it looked like you had a lot of success coming from that offside.
Well, both guys did a good job. You know, Jack Williams got upfield good when they were rolling his way, and he kept him in the pocket, and I thought I did, my job as far as keeping him inside the pocket and letting the backside go. So, you know, you have to work as a team in there. It's not one guy doing the job. It's all 4 of the guys plus anybody else that might be blitzing.
Greg, when the run-and-shoot offense, both of you play it, you really don't have to worry about the run when you face that particular offense, do you?
Not really. About the only guy you have to worry about running is the quarterback. You know, if he breaks containment or ducks up under the pass rush. Other than that, there's really not a lot of run threat in it.
Does that make your job a little bit easier?
Well, it makes it easier in the fact that you just line up and know you're pass rushing all the time.
What do they do? Give that draw man to the middle linebacker, and when you're coming upfield, in case they do hand off to him as Joe is sprinting out there, is that the responsibility of the middle linebacker?
Well, basically, we're just reading on the run. We don't worry about the draw too much. We figure they're not going to beat us with it with a steady diet, so you know they're going to make their money passing the ball, and we'll react to the draw on the run.
It's a long afternoon for you defensive linemen when it's all pass, and you've got to answer the bell every time and get in there and rush that passer, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but Joe Moss makes sure that we're in good enough shape so that we're going to be around for the end of the game.
How much of improvement, Greg? You've seen a lot of Ottawa football teams now. How much improvement have you seen in this one since training camp began?
Well, I think we've come a long way. The big difference is we're doing a lot of the little things right. I think, you know, our special team plays improved a lot from last year. And assignment-wise, we're not having the breakdowns like we did last year. And so far, you know, if there's some wood around here, I'll knock on it, but we've been staying relatively healthy.
Greg, a situation a little different for your next 2 games than the past 2. You had a lot of time off before you played Edmonton here. Then you had break again before you played Calgary. But you go now to Edmonton next Friday, and then you catch Winnipeg the following Thursday.
Well, it's kind of a payback for those long breaks we've been getting. You know, they can't be nice to you every week. They got to stick it to you once in a while, so this is our turn.
Well, let me ask you, with these long breaks, that brings up a good point. Do you think that's helped this young football team a lot?
Yeah, I think it was an advantage for us because, you know, we needed the time to work on things and improve the things that we did wrong in the preseason, and plus, you know, in Saskatchewan, we got off to a real bad start. But, you know, I think with 2 wins, it showed that it helped us a lot.
Greg Marshall, congratulations on being chosen our Carling O'Keefe Sports Defensive Game Star. Let's talk to one of the individuals who shone brightly offensively, Mike Catterbone. Mike, you didn't have the success, you and Derek Zeno, on punt returns this afternoon. That was so evident against Edmonton, but you did a pretty good job when you had to.
Yeah, I thought they were kicking the ball not too long, so it was kind of tough to get good returns. They were kicking them short.
What was deciding where you would go on those pass patterns when you would be split on the single side with nobody over there with you and you just go down and turn inside? What are you looking for?
Well, I'm just trying to find the seam. Wherever I think is the throwing lane, that's where I go.
Did they play as much zone as you thought they were going to play this afternoon?
No, they blitzed more than we thought, actually. We didn't prepare too well for the blitz, but we did all right.
How do you like the run and shoot offense as a receiver?
I think it's great because we're throwing 90% of the time, and that's what we're out there for, catch the ball.
Mike, they made a bit of an adjustment early in the ball game with 6 defensive backs.
Mm-hmm.
Did it bother you?
No, not at all. We at practice we went over that quite a bit, so we spent a lot of time with the 60-back package. So we were accustomed to that. We were expecting it.
Greg was saying that the Colonel works you guys pretty good and keeps you in pretty good shape. That helps on an afternoon like today.
Well, it sure does. He makes sure we get a running in and conditioning.
Have you always been a kick returner, Mike?
Yeah. Yes, I have.
Do you find it? How do you find it up here?
I love it. It's you know, compared to the States, it's a wide open field, and that gives us an advantage, return men. And I really enjoy it.
You had a little trouble on that last punt on the exchange. I don't know who blocked who, but one of you ran into the other. And last week you were knocking down the opponents. This week you knocked down each other.
It was just one of them things. You know, I thought he was going one way, he thought I was going the other way, and boom, we collided.
Well, Mike, as we mentioned to Greg Marshall, a lot of time off between games in your last 2, Edmonton and Calgary. The situation changes rather dramatically.
Yeah, I think the layoff really helped us, especially the offense, for the run and shoot, because it takes, I think, a while to get the timing there. So now, you know, that's over with. Now we got to buckle down, and we played 2 games in, you know, a week and a half, so we got to be ready for it.
Well, you know, sometimes, like you people started this year, especially in training camp, and everybody was saying that, will these guys ever win a football game all year? And then all of a sudden you got some help in that defensive secondary, and your offense started coming along, and the run and shoot started coming along, and it looks like all of a sudden you got hungry and you did something.
Yeah, I think we're going to be a team to contend with in the future. We're sure as hell going to try.
Mike Catterbone and Greg Marshall, congratulations on being chosen our Carling O'Keefe offensive and defensive game stars, and the Ottawa Rough Riders with a 14-12 victory this afternoon over Calgary. Now let's go back to CFL 85 Control and Brian Williams.
All right, thank you, Don Whitman. The Riders win by 2. Let's update. There is a good matchup. BC at Toronto Thursday. We have it. BC undefeated after last night. If you were with us at halftime, you heard from Toronto's new starting quarterback, Mark Cassell, and, of course, the veteran Condridge Holloway, who is out for at least 6 weeks with a knee injury. And that brings us up to date on other happenings. We'll be back in just a minute, but right now, let's return you to Lansdowne Park in Ottawa once again. Here's Don Whitman.
Well, Brian, it had to be a most frustrating afternoon for the Calgary Stampeders, and particularly Coach Steve Barato and quarterback Joe Barnes. Barnes was intercepted 5 times this afternoon. Even though they had 408 yards of net offense, the Stampeders were able to score just 1 touchdown. Barnes completing 26 of 43, but those turnovers definitely hurt the Calgary Stampeders today.
Well, that's the thing that coaches dread, turnovers, Leo. You know that. I think everybody in the country knows that when you turn the ball over, it makes it very difficult for you to win. And I think it's a credit to the Calgary defense that the score remained that close.
I think Steve Barato, my heart goes out to him, because as we talked about before, he's had 2 real tough games to start this season with. And they played well enough defensively to win that game this afternoon, but it just wasn't meant to be. And I know how J.T. Hay feels about missing that field goal, too. It's a tough afternoon and a long trip home for Calgary, but they look like they're going to be a football team that we're going to hear from, Don.
Well, the Calgary Stampeders had a couple of tough turnovers a week ago against the BC Lions, giving the ball up inside their own 10-yard line twice.
Well, they sure did. And, you know, you play against the Lions. Right now they're the best team in the country, and you turn the ball over and give it to them on the 2-yard line once and the 5-yard line the next time. You can't expect to keep a team like that out of the end zone. So they played very well against the Lions, but you can't, again, turnovers and giveaways will get you beat.
I think it's reasonably safe to assume, however, that Joe Barnes will continue to throw next week against Saskatchewan.
You've got to do it. If the run and shoot offense is made to throw, there's no doubt in my mind that Joe's going to continue to throw the football.
Well, there weren't a great deal of highlights from this ball game as far as scoring plays go, but let's take a look at some of the action that transpired this afternoon here at Lansdowne Park in Ottawa.
Well, we see Barnes is going to roll to his left, going to scramble around. This was the beginning of a long day. You see he's in the grass for Greg Marshall. He decided to throw the football, and who's waiting on it? Ralph Dixon. That was interception number 1. And it's got him off to the bad side, and it seemed to be setting the pattern for the entire day, Leo.
It sure did. And Joe Barnes, as long as he's played, when he looks at these films, he's going to wonder why he let some of these passes go.
This is the touchdown to Dwight Edwards, which was their
Look at him
play of the
step
first half
there.
As we said when it happened, and then we said at halftime, when you give Dwight Edwards a step, Very few people in the league are going to catch him. And this is the thing, when you're that close, 14-12 in a ball game, when a guy like Dwight Edwards, it only takes one play to get you in the ball game and get him a win today. But right back to the problem. Excellent defensive coverage. JoJo Heath just stepping in front of the receiver. And he's a very aggressive style football player, and the Calgary game plan was to go after him. But I would say today, JoJo Heath won the battle.
He had the last laugh, there's no question about that. And JoJo Heath doesn't have the speed that he had before, but he certainly has the smarts, and he has the ability when the ball is in the air to go to it.
See, the overthrow just got a little bit too high for the receiver, right into the safety man, Chris Fiegler, who's sitting right back in the middle. That's his job. So there you see, it was down on the goal line and snuffed out another scoring opportunity.
Joe did this 2 or 3 times this afternoon when he had a good vision downfield. He went back and just threw the ball right down the middle, and there's usually somebody waiting in there. Right at that time it was Washington. He picked the ball off, and you just can't only look at the guy that you're throwing the ball to. You got to look at those guys dropping in their zones, because they can go to that football just as well as the pass receiver can.
Well, that's for sure. Al Washington was just sitting underneath that one. And again, JoJo Heath looks like a replay of the first interception. He just came around the receiver, made the interception, and Calgary drive was stopped. Joe Barnes said at halftime that they were stopping themselves with interceptions and penalties, and it continued right through the second half. And it's a very disappointing afternoon for Joe Barnes, but as you say, he'll be back throwing next Saturday against Saskatchewan.
Well, when you look at that final score, 14-12, 3 of those interceptions coming inside the 30-yard line. Obviously, the Calgary Stampeders were in position for a field goal, so in a 2-point ball game, take one of those interceptions back, a possible field goal, and it's a different story as far as the outcome goes.
Could have made a big difference, Don. And when you look at both the East and the West now, with the exception of Montreal, looks like they're going to be strong in the East, and BC in the West. With Conridge out over at Toronto, it's anybody's who's going to be in that playoffs as far as the East is concerned. And out West the same way, with the exception of Vancouver, who's going to be there? It's going to be a real interesting race all through the Canadian Football League this year.
I think so, and you know, Conridge Holloway going down for the Toronto Argonauts. I know the Argonauts are going to miss him tremendously, but I think the fans of the country are going to miss him too, because he's a very exciting football player, and he made that run and shoot go, and he's an exciting football player to watch. And football is a game of injuries, and you never know when it's your turn.
You're right, and I think of the rest of these quarterbacks that are working on this run and shoot, they could get a master's degree just going in there and listening to Conridge, because he does it just about right.
Well, it has certainly been a tough week for injuries in the Canadian Football League in the game involving Winnipeg and Edmonton. Edmonton lost Joe Holloman. Winnipeg had Willard Reeves and Tom Clements both go down. David Shaw was also hurt for Winnipeg in that ball game. A number of key people have been hurt this past week.
Well, last night in that game out in Vancouver, there were a few people knocked down, too. I really believe that there's not a whole lot of difference between the top and bottom teams in each division of the CFL, and I think that the games are going to get more physical each week, because these teams that were picked to win aren't being able to control the teams they were supposed to beat, and I think when a team down on the bottom all of a sudden realizes it can win, they get awful tough.
No question, Ron. You know, something that amazes me is the remark that Joe Moss said after the game about his running attack. He said, we're a run-and-shoot offense, and we're not going to run the football. And that's pretty traditional now throughout the entire Canadian Football League. And I'm not too sure that doesn't take something away from the game of football that you don't run with. I know that you're a proponent of the passing game yourself, but I like to see those good off-tackle plays and end sweeps and things like that. And Montreal still runs a little bit, but I think and Vancouver runs. So that may be an indication that in order to win big in this league that you got to have a running game too.
Well, the British Columbia Lions showed last night that they've got a running game in Keevan Jenkins, and we're going to see him on Thursday night against the Toronto Argonauts. Now, looking forward to that game, are they going to try and go after Mark Cassell, the BC Lion defensive unit?
Mark better put 2 chin straps on.
That's right. They're not going to take any prisoners against the Argonauts. They've been waiting a long time for this ball game, and I think they even hoped that Conridge was going to be in there, but they're going to take what they can get, and they're going to go after him. You can bet on that.
It wouldn't matter whether it was Mark or Conridge. They're coming.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's our next game coming up Thursday night. The Toronto Argonauts entertaining the BC Lions at Lansdowne Park this afternoon. 14-12 the score. Ottawa over Calgary. Now let's go to CFL 85 Control and Brian Williams.
All right, thank you, Don Whitman. Speaking of Mark Cassell, if you were with us at halftime, we heard from both Holloway and Cassell. Cassell, a very confident young man. It is indeed going to be interesting to see what happens Thursday night. Let's have a look at the standings as a result of the game today. The BC Lions, undefeated. They, of course, defeated Montreal last night. Calgary has yet to pick up any points. We take a look at the Eastern Conference, and that's where the change is. The Ottawa Rough Riders now 2-1 for 4 points. Ottawa and Toronto trailing Montreal by
for a win of any kind, while the Riders were out for a win to push them back into the Eastern Conference race. It was a yawner, and the Riders get 2 points. The Stamps, meanwhile, go back to the drawing board.
Ottawa had a good scoring chance early as Calgary quarterback Joe Barnes threw an interception right into the arms of Ralph Dixon. Ottawa had a first down at the Stampeder 20, but could only manage a field goal. Calgary trailed 6-1 in the second quarter, but took the lead on an innocent-looking play. Barnes went to Dwight Edwards, and the former Ottawa Rough Rider eluded several tackles and went 51 yards to score. The Stamps led 8-6. But that would turn out to be the only touchdown of the game. For the third straight week, Calgary had difficulty on offense. Joe Barnes was intercepted 5 times on the day, a career high. Ottawa led 14-11 late in the game when the Stampeders made their attempt at a comeback. Barnes found Danny Barrett, who got to the Ottawa 41-yard line. With less than a minute left, J.T. Hay tried a 36-yard field goal that could have tied the game, but it was wide. Ottawa gave up the single, but won the game 14-12.